Thanks for joining us for customer loyalty and what really happens when you put your best customer first. So just like to give you a bit of background about why I thought I would get this amazing panel of speakers together. So Upside's been having a lot of interesting conversations around customer loyalty, and generally companies come to us because they want to stop their profit margin erosion, they want to change their conversation with the customer and be recognized as a good brand. And lastly, they want to know how they can better understand what, when, and how they advertise to drive, kind of hyper-targeted offers to win customers back, to reward loyal customers and get new customers. And in conversations with loads of those retailers, the same issue comes up time and time again, and that's that the marketing department are mainly targeted on new customer acquisition, which tends to be quite at odds with the fact that we know that 95% of companies' future revenue normally comes from their existing user base. So we thought we'd get some experts together on the subject to save having all these individual conversations and try to look at why there's that huge disconnect within businesses and really give you all one key takeaway, which is that, there's money being left on the table if you're focusing all your efforts on new customer acquisition, and especially if you're using really heavy discounts to attract them. So joining us today, we've got Brian, who is known as Mr Giftcard in the UK. He has been in the retail and gift card and loyalty space. I'm just going to say for a long time. I wouldn't want to give Brian's age away. And secondly, we've got the lead data scientist, Sam Short, with us from Upside. And Sam's got some great insights to share with us around the data she's been looking at, especially with subscription renewals. And we were also lucky enough to secure some more time with Martin from Gap in the Matrix, who spent 6 years looking at this very subject. So I'm an email marketer, and I have experience also in segmentation and personalization to increase lifetime value. We do have somebody manning the questions, so if, at any point in this, if a question jumps up, please do feel free to pop that into the chat box, and Alistair will let us know. So to start us off, Brian, just to get the ball rolling, I think you've got a wealth of knowledge in the consumer loyalty space, and it would be great to know, over the time that you've been working in that space, what's the one key change you've seen in the last couple of years?
So the real change is around data and being able to see and understand your customer, and actually now with open banking and a number of other sources, if you like, but you can see not only what you could see before, which is the behavior of your customer in your store, but only in your store. You can now see your customer in terms of what their wider behavior is, and you can identify somebody who is a target and what percentage that you were getting of their trade. So effectively, you can see a customer might look like a good customer if they spend X, but you might have 100% of X because it's a single person living on their own, versus actually somebody with 8 kids and huge outgoings. So actually, the good news with the information that you've got today is you can see who your potential good customer is, and then what share you're getting of that. And I have a challenge with this new customer word, and I've done a lot of research, quantitative. I'm an accountant, so a lot of quantitative research, and fundamentally, the thought that somebody's going to arrive from a different planet, wrapped in cling film, and suddenly comes into your shop is a little bit off. So I remember doing some work for Boots, and we were fortunate we had Advantage card data there as well. So actually, I looked like a Boots customer. As far as they theoretically were concerned, I was a Boots customer. Now, I'll tell you something. My one trip for a meal deal at Manchester Airport on a flight somewhere did not actually make me a habitual Boots customer. But for Boots, I looked like an existing customer. So you've got to really kind of understand that, and then see that, and also see how people spend. So, so many retailers have so many different departments. Take Halford's, very easy to understand. Yes, if Sam's got a bike, you're a potential. If Martin's got a car, he's a potential, etc. But for different places. Catherine, you and I have chatted about this. The fact that you go into M&S and buy a sandwich twice a week, you're a customer, but actually you're not going to homeware, you're not going to ladies fashion. I hope you're not going to men's fashion. So actually, effectively, you know, it is interesting how you can just take this on or off, new or not new customer piece. So that's my kind of the new world. I would have dreamt for this information that's available now back in the day.
Yeah, so it probably makes sense to bring you in at this point, Sam, because you have all of that data. You're the person who knows how to derive insights from it. Lots of people have just got the problem that they've got so much. Do you think it's a benefit that we've been able to look at that? And how do you use that data to kind of spot trends and consumer habits?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Brian said is exactly right. I think a lot of retailers at the moment, they understand their customers very well, but only within the context of their brand. And they don't really know how they behave sort of outside of the brand. So I guess maybe just to pick up on that, the Halfords example, maybe I've bought something once, some bike lights from Halfords. So they know I have a bike, and so I look like I might be a Halfords customer as far as they're concerned. But actually, if you were to understand me a bit better, maybe using my open banking data, so you know, you see, and again, not me specifically, but people like me, so a segment or a cluster of people like me, maybe you see that actually I buy most things from an independent bike shop. And so I'm probably not that interested in buying from Halfords, because I like to buy things locally, and I'm prepared to pay a little bit more for that. So I think having those insights about me and people like me would really help you with your marketing, because maybe you don't waste your time with me, because I'm probably not going to come and be a loyal customer with Halfords, because I'm loyal to a local shop. So that's
almost,
just sort of, yeah.
Yeah, almost what I hear that you're saying there is maybe it's not about finding your best customers. Maybe it's about finding the people who aren't your best customers, who are the worst. You know, and understanding what the differences are between those two things as well.
Absolutely. And I think you can use a lot of data to help personalize things as well. And I think maybe that's where it comes to understand like what I would be a customer for versus what I'm not going to be a customer for. So again, to take the Halfords example, maybe I am prepared to come and buy, I don't know, some really fancy lights because I can't get them from my local bike shop. So just understanding the sorts of things I would be a customer for, and then just personalizing things for me. So whether it's using data to personalize your marketing efforts, or maybe you want to personalize some sort of offer specifically for me to get me into the store, I think you're able to do that a lot more easily when you understand your customer as a whole using open banking data, for example.
Great. I mean, Martin, I think you might have a challenge around the merchants actually already understand their current customer. You know, I know that you've been doing a lot of work with different merchants. Do you think that that's true? Do they know who their best customer are, and how would their behavior be different if they did understand that fully?
So it's a really great question. So I'm going to look at both sides of what Brian and Sam were speaking about. The first thing for me about understanding who your customer is you've got to understand what loyalty is. Right, and too often when we hear the word loyalty, how people think about it is they think about the amount of money that the customer is actually spending with them, and of course that's a metric of it, right? If somebody's spending more money with you, then you can surmise that they're more loyal to you. But you've got to look at the context component of it, and that's what Brian was speaking about, and Sam, right? Like, what is the actual customer's context? So the joy for me using the upside example is that you can actually see where people are spending more of their time and their money. Right, and of course money is a metric of loyalty, but it's not the be all and end all. And what we've done too much with data and with software at the moment is that we don't understand the context. So my experience, 78 different brands that I've looked at, they divide, the most common thing that I find is that they divide their loyalty program by the frequency and size of the budget the person spends, right? So low, medium, frequent, irregular, that type of spending, right, is the kind of normal metrics of what they do. But they're not even looking at the context of what they're actually buying from us in terms of products and things like that. So for example, if you're a clothing company, and I'll use Ralph Lauren as an example, Ralph Lauren have an issue where 82% of their male database only buys polo shirts or polo shirts and one other product, right? And so what you've got as an example there is that the brain anchors loyalty, right? So loyalty becomes a preference. So particularly it's more prevalent for men than it is for women, but it's not an absolute. We're not doing a gender model. But in the Ralph Lauren case, 82% of their database have already got in their mind that they're going to go to Ralph Lauren for polo shirts, right? So when Ralph Lauren send them adverts and content that's about trousers, they're not going to engage with it. They need to be triggered on what's most relevant for them. But even deeper than that, Ralph Lauren have a huge positive. They're known for polo shirts. The huge negative is that all their other customer base has got all these preferences, the loyalty ticked in their brain. So when they think about t-shirts, they're thinking about these for the other 5 brands, and Ralph Lauren never actually comes up in their thinking and their process. So I think that there's a huge contextual gap. I'm not anti-technology, I'm not anti-software, I'm certainly not anti-big data and things. However, it's all about how you connect the dots and actually use it. And there's a much bigger picture than actually saying, well, this person that currently spends £20 and let's get them up to £25. I think there's just assumptions all the way through it. And I think that's what, combining what Brian and Sam were speaking about, is that you can't take everything as an absolute. And if you base your entire perception of loyalty on price, then you're going to set yourself up to fail.
Yeah, because actually as a brand, you put yourself in a much stronger position if there's no question where I'm going to go for my polo shirt, to take that example. You know, you don't have to discount, you don't have to do a 2-for-1 offer. If you're the go-to place already in that person's mind, that's something you don't have to discount. But, you know, if that is the case, why do you think there's a constant push for those new customers over existing, Martin? Do you think it's just too difficult to try to build the lifetime value?
I think that if I'm going to be a little bit trite about it, and I feel like being trite on a Friday afternoon, is that humans don't understand humans. This was my problem statement, 4 years of R&D, that like our core anchor was, why don't humans understand humans, right? So the reality is that we don't understand why our customers are actually loyal to us. I mean, away from price and discounts and stuff like that, right? So we don't know that by serving those 82% of people more polo shirts and more of what they want, we can assure their loyalty and actually increase profit. Because we're getting to a point where I think the old target for the retail of average selling price versus RRP was somewhere between 83 and 87%, depending on the brand, right? And now it's dropping closer to being round about 70%, and some brands I've worked with down as 68%, right? So what they're actually doing, to use your example, is that because they don't understand what loyalty is, they're actually giving away money because they're discounting things that people would buy anyway, and they're then pushing people away by showing them stuff that they don't care about, which is the lack of relevance and personalization and stuff, right? And what it leaves you with is the trite thing, in my opinion, is that if you don't understand your customer, performance marketing is a behavior, right, that's driven us to new. Let's top up the hopper. Let's add more customers in the top, right? Because what happens is when we lose people's loyalty and they fall out the bottom, what most brands do is if the customer hasn't bought from them in 12 months, they just put them into a great big gray kind of bucket, and everybody gets the same drudge, right? So we've spent all this money to earn their loyalty, and as soon as they stop being loyal, which happens because we're serving them with the relevant crap, right? Once we lose them, we then give up on them even more and then spend another fortune to get what is often the same people eventually back in using a different email or something like that. It's all a bit nuts, really. But to answer your question without being trite or anything like it, is that the brain anchors a meaning against every product, right? We're looking to reward ourselves with what we buy, what we wear, what we eat, who we are, how we serve ourselves. And it comes back to being served relevance, right? And if we don't understand what our products mean to people, then we're going to be continuing to focus on let's go and acquire customers, spend a lot of money, not care about the ones that drop out the bottom, and just keep hitting KPIs by following this cycle of what I think is just a race to the bottom for retail, hospitality, and consumer in general, really. Sorry, that was a bit of a rant. I'll breathe now.
But it sounds like a really broken model, and it's as you say, race to the bottom is a total opposite end, really, of where I think, you know, if you're the CEO or the CFO of a company, you want to look at, you know, ideal as being a company that's profitable, you're well balanced, you have little excess stock, and you can use discounts in a strategic way. You know, you can use it for customer loyalty, as opposed to, I guess, you know, if I was looking at the polar opposite of that, it would be unprofitable, desperate for business with the race to the bottom for discounts. So what about, you know, just open question really to the floor. And if any of the attendees have got any thoughts on this, we'd love to hear those as well. If they're so focused on retention, do the current methods, you know, I'm a terrible one for starting up a card, you know, even local coffee shops, stamp cards, various things like that. You know, do the current loyalty schemes, do they work? Are they just being done because the company has just said, yeah, we should have a loyalty scheme, and once they've got it, they've got a stamp? You know, are they monitoring the success of those internally? And, you know, to your point, Martin, as well, do they give customers a emotional connection to the brand in any way? You mentioned Advantage Card, Brian, which, you know, I think has probably been one of the most successful, and it was the earliest. But it gives people, you know, kind of real tangible amount off at the retailer. So yeah, it'd be great to know what you all think does really drive loyalty, you know, in terms of schemes and points and things.
Yeah, a few things for me, Catherine. Thank you. You know, one is this kind of word discount. I think we need to change it to incentivization, and we need to incentivize customers in the way that's relevant to them. And equally, when we do have that sort of blunt loyalty piece, it is a matter of segmenting the different customers and actually sort of saying, right, okay, you know, where are we seeing the very frequent, the guys who will just always come to you versus the people who've actually just picked up a loyalty thing. And fundamentally, at the bottom end, it's all a bit disgruntled because actually they're not happy because they haven't collected enough points. The merchant's not happy because they're running a platform for them. And you need to have ways of engaging that customer. So I think again, just on that loyalty piece, I think there is that bit around proper incentivization, proper identification of the customer. You know, I come back to Sam's point to some degree, and it was something that really kind of triggered in my mind as she was talking, is this is about potential. And with data, we understand the potential of a customer. So my old days in hotels, we didn't turn around and say, we got 70% occupancy. I've got 70% of my rooms full. I need to concentrate on those. You concentrated on the 30% of rooms that you hadn't sold. Now, for a retailer, for me, you actually see the ground. And you see the ground that actually is seeds in it, and it's growing. You equally see the ground that isn't yours, that's full of weeds and whatever else, customers who probably will not come to you. But you do actually identify through data the potential. And it's that potential, the harrowed ground, that you just need to sow seeds into. And that's the key bit that this open information gives you, so that you see that this customer is potentially somebody who's shopping in other shops like yours and would potentially become a customer. But then, kind of to Martin's point, I think you also need to understand why you are important to that relevant customer. You know, I distinctly remember in Whitbread, we had a number of different brands. So, you know, when you considered Brewers Fayre, if you know Brewers Fayre, with a sort of fun factory for the kids, and TGI Fridays. So what was very interesting was the real factor in terms of same age demographic. Were they coming to Brewers Fayre or were they coming to TGI Fridays? It depended on whether they were divorced or not. So actually, behaviorally, if your mum and dad with the kids and you're going out on a Saturday afternoon, you want to throw those kids into a fun factory and look at them in a TV screen and leave them in there for hours and have a good time. If you're divorced dad with the kids that you haven't seen all week, you want them at the table with you, but you're incapable probably of entertaining them fully. So you want a cool looking dub, as we used to call them, or waitress or waiter who would come down, red and white stripes, sorry, the Sunderland colours, and would actually entertain them by turning a balloon into a little frog. So it's very interesting how your relevance to the particular customer, which I think plays completely to Martin's point around understanding why somebody comes to you, what they buy, but why they buy it, more the case sort of thing. And I think we can all talk about the emotional attachment we have to some places, and also the fact that quite often we become a terrorist against others because of the bad experience that we have. And actually, that's one of the things, again, with data that we can see, is Martin has happily come to me for the last God knows how many years. And what on earth has happened? Because he's dropped off a cliff. So why isn't he coming and shopping with me? I can see that now and see that he's actually gone somewhere else. What on earth is going on? Why am I not getting his spend? So that's, I think, some just points for me, if I may.
Yeah, brilliant. And Sam, I know you did you've done some work historically around customer retention. So it'd be great if you could share, and it's the first time that I'll have heard it as well. So yeah, if you could share a bit around that with us, that would be really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So before joining Hubside, I worked for a management consultancy firm, leading data science teams, specifically in sort of consumer retail. And so a lot of the work we did was very much focused on personalization, and specifically to reduce churn. So to retain these customers, so you don't need to go looking for new customers. To just give one specific example, I'll change it slightly to not reveal too many of the details of the client. But if we were to consider, say, a breakdown recovery company, so someone like, I don't know, the AA or RAC, something like that, a lot of their customer base will pay a yearly subscription to be part of that. So if you break down at the side of the road, they'll come and pick you up. And every year, your subscription is up for renewal. And quite often, they'll just send you a letter with a price. And the price might just be a standard price, because actually they're just going to kind of jump you up every year and slowly increase your price. And that might work for some customers, but it won't work for all customers. So having this sort of blanket stepping just doesn't work, and it doesn't help you to reduce churn. So we actually used the company's data to build a model that would suggest the best price, that for each individual customer or group of customers who look the same, what you should actually recommend to them. And so in terms of the data, we would use things like how often they use the service, if they'd called us for any reason at all, basically to try and get a sort of measure of engagement. And we'd use that to build the model. And it was relatively successful. But when I think now, in terms of the information that's available, specifically with open banking, we could have built a much better model, because it would have helped us to even further understand the customers. So if we'd segmented the customers, we could also use open banking data to sort of gauge their affluence, right? Or if they had a family. And so you can kind of gauge their affluence by knowing the kind of card that they have, but it doesn't really help you understand how much disposable income they have, how actually price sensitive your customer is. And it's not about exploiting customers. I think it's just about offering a price that your customer would be willing to pay. And there's obviously some tolerance in that. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example of where you can use your own data, but also open banking data to help personalize things for customers.
I mean, it makes sense when you hear somebody say it. And I think we're really lucky to live in an era where we do have that data. You know, it's thank goodness we're not just in the realms of putting up billboards and blanket TV ads and just trying to pick, you know, a program that people are going to be watching, you know, for retailers or any merchants, you know, to say, well, we think that's our target demographic, and they would just run an ad. So it's incredible that we can leverage some of that data. Something that stuck in my mind earlier when we were just talking around best customer, and we mentioned, you know, that perhaps looking at a worst customer as well. I know I heard a stat from, I think, Salesforce, and they said actually companies innovate much faster when they focus on their worst customers instead of something like this superhuman model, which would be, say, focus on your best 5% of customers. And, you know, with my e-commerce hat on, I think, well, I want to find those people who come back to me time and time again and just buy from me without question. And how do I find more of those? And I guess that's where Facebook's lookalike audiences came from. So, and I guess the biggest win would be to take your worst customer and make them a best customer. But how do you try to move any of those people up the funnel? What loyalty metrics, you know, what really works? So it's great to look at that data, and it's great to you know, understand what to put in front of them. But you know, maybe Martin, you've got something a bit more around this. How do you get more of that emotional connection from a customer in terms of loyalty? Is it just about serving them right? Is it just about giving them the right offer at the right time? Just wonder if you've got any, you know, any specific examples for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great great multi-part question. So the first thing, I'll go back to where you started, right? Is that loyalty is a feeling. Let's forget about loyalty programs just for a second. Let's stop thinking that we're a brand or we're analyzing anything like that. To a person, psychologically, neuroscience-wise, loyalty is a feeling, right? And the biggest breakthrough that we had when we were doing the 4 years of R&D is that the way that the brain thinks about a brand is exactly the same way that it thinks about a friend, right? So if you've got a friend, like pre-COVID when we were allowed out to play, right? You had a friend that you would go for with a pizza every Friday night, for example, right? And if that friend suddenly says, and your reward, the thing that you really wanted was that pizza with that friend, if your friend suddenly says, I want to start going out on a Thursday night, but the thing for you was a Friday night, or they change the type of food, right? You're still friends with them, but you might pick another friend to go with your Friday night, right? And you've got another friend that you'll go and have a crazy party with once every 3 months, but apart from that, you avoid them because they're a bit nuts, right? Right, so we divide our friends that same way. And the way we think about brands and the brand's products is exactly the same way in our brains, right? So the way that a brand treats you is what enforces loyalty or not. So we're attracted to something, so we can still like the logo of a brand. So think about a brand that you used to love a few years ago, and you still like the idea of them, but you stop buying from them, right? It's because they change the experience, because they're not giving you the same relevant things. And that's not necessarily product design, but it can be. What we're really talking about is how you treat people and how you behave towards people, right? That has a big effect on loyalty as a feeling, right? So the more relevance you give me, the more times you ask me for a pizza on a Friday night, because that's what I'm used to doing, the more times you show me the polo shirt first, because that's what I'm used to getting from you, the more time you show me that style, or the more times that you understand that contextually that I only went to Boots because I was flying, and you actually have to earn the right for me to go where I normally live for my lunch, to use Brian's example, right? That's what loyalty is. If you understand me and you serve me with more relevance, then I'll come back to you. But what happens is that if I use an example, Diesel is a brand that comes to mind. Loved them when I was a kid, right? And I still like them. I like the theory of them, but I haven't been friends with them for like 20 years. If they served me with relevant stuff, I would buy stuff from them, 100%. But they've stopped serving me relevant experiences a long time ago. And that's how loyalty works. That would be part one of my question. Is like, that's more about context, right? Understand the context of what different segments are looking for. And it's less about price, it's less about their market share, it's more about what they're buying from you and why they're buying it from you. And then the second part for me is that I call a lot of loyalty programs health and safety mathematics. And I've been doing that pre-COVID, right? And what I mean by that is that, you know, when you walk through, again, when we were allowed out to play, you're walking through a shopping center and you see like a health and safety poster, right? And it makes sense to the person that wrote the poster, but you sit and you can look at it for hours and you still can't quite get what they mean. You know what I mean? It's like health and safety seems clearly but incredibly puzzling. And of course, I could say, look at everything, the stuff with COVID and stuff like that, and the 67 tiers that we've got and how many times that's changed, right? It's clear as light of day to government, and yet the people that governments serve, we're still not quite sure what it is they want us to do, other than we're going to stay in the house and we're going to give up now until you tell us any different, right? That's the joke I make to explain the health and safety mathematics. That's how too many loyalty programs are set up. They're so ridiculously confusing, right? You could go on TK Maxx right now. They've got this treasure program. You can't quite understand it, and the prizes are like massive or really small, or they're massively disconnected. Last time I checked, Hackett's loyalty program is air miles, and you're like, what is me rewarding myself with a new blazer got to do with travel? So I'll be happy to get the air miles, right? But it has no association or loyalty to my feelings about Hackett. So you're giving me a reward, but it doesn't drive any loyalty to how I feel about you. So I think that health and safety mathematics of loyalty programs is massively misunderstood, because a lot of it is generated based on size of the spend, not the meaning of what you're serving with people, which comes back to personalization again, I think. That's my view.
And it sounds like the personalization is the key driver of maintaining that friendship, which makes sense. Yeah, you know, if I was just going to copy paste a WhatsApp message around to all of my friends daily, it wouldn't be particularly personalized, and my connection probably wouldn't be as close. And it's the same with the scattergun approach that we see at the moment. So yeah, I mean, go.
Sorry, just to touch on personalization, because it is so important. And you spoke earlier about sort of brands having a race to the bottom and discounting a lot. I think personalization really gives you the opportunity to not do that, so to preserve the value of your brand. I think maybe to take Boots as an example, when you walk in the store, I think you're overwhelmed with offers and discounts, and it's quite confusing, and you also have the loyalty card as well. But if you were to just personalize the sorts of offers you might give to people, so buy the loyalty card, because I know that so many people have a Boots loyalty card, you perhaps wouldn't need to do all of the discounts so much in store when people are buying things that probably they don't even realize are discounted in a specific way. So you're just reducing your margins for no reason at all.
And I think, yeah, the reducing margin has got to be a main point, and it'd be great to know what you think of the end outcome of this, Brian, and really, you know, from a CFO's point of view, or, you know, anybody, I guess, in the company who really cares about the bottom line. If I go on to most, you know, I've been visiting, you know, hundreds of websites and signing up to their emails, and I'm just being offered, you know, 20% off as a new customer. And if I don't then buy, I'm being offered 25, 30%. I'm pretty sure some of them are going to pay me soon to complete a purchase. And you just wonder where that stops. And it must be costing, you know, I think I tried to do some rough maths, and just to get an email address on that overlay, 20% of the value of an order, that could be £10 million just to build an email list that gets what a 1% click-through rate on the offers, and even fewer then in terms of sales. So at some point, the disconnect, you know, of this kind of discount for new customers, I just use a different email address. Whereas if they just gave me that, or they could probably give me half of it as a current customer, where do you think that stops, Brian? Where's the line going to be drawn?
Well, I think I don't think it's so much a drawing of the line, but I think it's a trend. And I think I have a real challenge with the word customer loyalty. It's about engagement. The biggest loyalty program I entered into in my life started with an engagement. And you know, you do that. It's that engagement. So I'm talking about my wife. Well, it's a bit of a joke, but effectively it is that. It's the engagement, and it's what's right to a customer. So I currently pay for a loyalty. Now, most loyalty platforms, please join and we'll give you something. But then all of a sudden, I'm ending up paying, I think it's $7.99 a month for convenience to Amazon Prime. Now, it's not price. It's not because Amazon don't write to me every month saying, oh, you've got air miles, or you can do this, or you can do that. It's just about convenience. And I think, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What's right for Martin and his relationship with Ralph Lauren, or his relationship with whatever, is entirely different to what's right for Sam or what's right for Catherine. And that's the key thing, is actually that engagement with the customer, not bluntly putting out discounts. Because I think a great example is John Lewis. Frankly, if you want to buy groceries cheaper than Waitrose, go to Aldi. It's dead simple. However, they offer free coffee, they do all these other things. So it's really a matter of having the relevant thing to the relevant customer and understanding their key things. So you know, I go back to my old hotel days. Actually, a big part of customer engagement doesn't involve a loyalty platform at all. You going into your local pub and them saying, "Hey, Martin, your usual. I've stuck the newspaper there. I know you like the whatever." It's that kind of engagement that's absolutely there. It's the hotel making you feel special. That's the key thing. When you get to check, I guarantee you, hotels have worked out that blue carpet is nowhere near as expensive as red carpet. But customers pay so much to check in on the red carpet line. But it's all of those things. They're all the customer engagement things. Somebody who turns around and it's not a conditional offer. Catherine, I noticed you've been with us 5 or 6 times. I'd like to do X. They're the really powerful things. And it's that unconditional. That's the piece, but with real intelligence behind it. That's when it looks natural It's really cool. It's really cool. So that's the bit that makes a difference.
You're right, and there's a handful probably of websites that I can think of that say welcome back, and if I put something in my basket on my mobile, it's there when I go in on desktop as well, you know, for omni-channel. So yeah, and the fact that I could name those off the top of my head, you're right, goes a long way. And so they've done a really great job of taking, you know, that going into your grocers and them knowing what veg you always buy, and getting that ready for you before you've even looked around the shop. You know, it's taking that relationship and the knowledge about you and personalizing what you have, and getting that ready. So, but I'm aware that we are running rapidly out of time. I promised that we would talk for about half an hour and then open up to questions. So apologies for that. We do have, I think, Alistair, is there any questions?
Actually, there's a very appropriate question for what you were just discussing, actually, and I think it's quite clear to everyone what bad loyalty looks like. And we've got a question from Dion Davis here about what are the best ways, and Brian, you gave some there, but what are the best ways to engage customers when it comes to customer loyalty?
Great. I mean, if we go round the room, so if we start with you first, Martin.
I'll do a really quick, rapid kind of matrix style download, building on that question and what Brian said, right? So great examples of contextualized software. Netflix has 24,000 taste clusters, right? So what they do is divide their content by what you consume, by lots of variables that is not just at the genre level, right? So it's the meaning that sits behind it. So Netflix is purposely designed to serve you more relevant content in each of the categories. So all four of us could go on Netflix now for customers and we'll get a completely different experience. To use Brian's other example is that Amazon, I'm a huge fan of Amazon. Like any consumer, I want everything quickly and I want it rapidly, right? So everything that isn't emotional is the way that I describe it. I buy from Amazon, right? And I get it next day. Amazon have 110 data scientists and they really, really need Sam to replace all 110 of them. And I'll tell you why, because what Amazon fail at is they've got no context. So what Netflix is doing is going a ton of layers deep to understand loyalty, right? Taste clusters. Amazon just does 2 layers deep, and I know their data infrastructure, so I'm speaking from a point of fact. So what they do is, because you've looked at something, they assume that you want something else, and because it's associated with the category, they assume that you want it as well. So it loses the context, but the fulfillment is absolutely amazing. I agree with Brian, and I've got a Prime membership and stuff. So I think to answer Dion's question, I think that you have to understand context. Right? And I always say, how can you humanize the experience? We've got a technique that we call data to stories, where we say, right, there's nothing wrong with data, but understand the story that sits behind it, which is exactly why I'm such a big fan of what Sam does and what Upside does, because it looks at the whole context of relevancy, not the whole thing, because to answer Dion's question, is the best example you can get of people doing bad things with loyalty is Facebook. Right? Everything that Facebook does is unethical, it's analyzing, it's following, it's listening, and it's serving you irrelevant crap. It doesn't work.
Great. Sam, is there anything that you would like to add to that? So what are the best ways to engage customers when it comes to customer loyalty?
Yeah, I think I agree with completely everything that Martin has said. And I think just to, again, reiterate, we've spoken about it a lot, but I think it is all just about personalization and really showing that you do understand your customer. And I think there's a lot of space in the data space and data science space to be able to actually to do that a lot better, I think.
Great. And Brian?
Totally. And I think customers, it's all about how you make them feel. I'll give you a very old-fashioned example here for a second. So the restaurant manager, Martin and Sam appear in the restaurant. And I can't, welcome back, Sam, lovely to see you again. I can't, oh dear, they put you on table 7. Let me quickly change that around and put you on this table over here. Now, it didn't cost me or the restaurant any more to put you on a different table, but my God, Sam feels really special. I went in and they immediately gave me a better table. Sam has no idea that wasn't the original table, but it's how you make that customer feel. And that's the whole thing about data. I would love it if a company came to me through open banking and said, Brian, you've shopped with me for some time. Actually, sorry to see that you've gone. We'd love to welcome you back with XYZ. And they're the key things that make a difference.
Or even act before that point. You know, I guess that's the great thing about artificial intelligence, is we should start to be able to spot when that when that's going to happen and act before it does. And I think, you know, when you take that friendship example that you used, Martin, you know, if you've got that consistent relationship going, somewhere else might offer me £10 to change my car insurance, but is it worth it when I know that this place, you know, cares about me as a customer and I've got a relationship with them? I think I'm going to be much harder to tempt away with an offer. And that's really what, you know, the behavior that I would like to see change over the next few years. And especially, you know, the people who make it through, you know, what we haven't covered very much, probably a discussion for another time, is how difficult the past year has been for merchants, and that anybody that makes it out the other side of this, there's going to be a bigger slice of the pie. But also loads of people have changed. Lots of people have shopped somewhere for the first time. And it's really down to those companies now to work out, okay, we've got them, you know, they perhaps only shopped with us because they had to, right? Maybe we were the only place, we're on the 10th page of Google and they found us and we had stock of toilet roll or wine, and they've shopped with us one time. How can I now give those people a good enough experience to make them, turn them into loyal customers, and so that they're delighted that they discovered us, you know, that this one time, and they don't perhaps go back to their previous habits. And I think what we really want to get across here is that there's a lot of money being left on the table in your existing customer base, but it's really leveraging the data within those to understand how you can personalize, you know, that loyalty journey, and it's going to look different for everyone.
I love Brian's example of the hotel, where it is, you can personalize it quite easily because you're dealing with a person all of the time. But then when you scale from being a hotel to, I don't know, like a whole collection of hotels, how do you maintain the personalization without actually seeing people, right? Without actually knowing who they are. And I think that's definitely the challenge. And I think that's where data really does help. And I think specifically open banking data as well. So you really do understand who your customer is, and you know where else they shop, so you can build up a sense of who they are and what they like. And I think that's where data really helps with that.
And I know, Martin, you've seen, you've got some great examples in one of your white papers about the decimation of some really great, you know, retailers or restaurants that we all used to go to, and at some point just dropped out of being relevant. So we're almost at time. It would be great, perhaps.
I was going to say, let's not get Martin started on Carluccio's again. We're getting quite a few. We're getting quite a few questions actually, which seem to relate to data. They seem to relate to data, and so I think perhaps we could direct them to last week's webinar when Martin, Sam, and you, Catherine, delved a bit deeper into that topic. But sticking with the loyalty piece, we've got a question from Matt Woodhouse. What is the best way to personalize offers?
I can speak about it certainly from a technical standpoint. So what Martin was speaking about when he spoke about Netflix, I think is a really great example. And in sort of data science, this is called recommender engines. So if you are a really bad version of Netflix, and maybe this is what Amazon do, I don't know, but you just kind of say, oh, everyone, they kind of look the same, so let's just kind of recommend the sort of average thing to them, and a sort of blanket recommendation. Whereas what Netflix does really well, as Martin was saying, is they look at so many different dimensions, and they compare you as a customer to other people who look like you to see what they liked, and they consider you on so many different levels. And that's what really helps them to build a really great recommender engine to really personalize your experience and what they suggest that you watch. So I think that's one way. Another way that you could do personalization well, to take the Boots example. So I understand how my customer spends because I can track them using the Advantage card. Sure, I give them points, but the value for me as a merchant is the data and really understanding my customer. But if I were to augment my Advantage card data with, say, for example, open banking data, again, at a cluster level, so we're not speaking about individuals because we want to really maintain people's privacy, but maybe I know that this cluster of people are probably about to start a family, because I can see from open banking that they started shopping in sort of different shops, maybe the equivalent of Mothercare, whatever it is that exists now. And so I can personalize things, and I can give them offers for things that they've never really bought before, but I know it's really relevant for them because I really understand them as a person. So maybe the next time they come in to buy their shampoo, I also give them an offer for nappies or dummies or something like that as well.
Great. And it's, I mean, from my experience, around personalization, it's looking at, and it's easier probably to do in the digital world, but where did somebody start their experience? Did they come to us from Facebook? Did they come to us from Google search? Interrupting somebody's journey with an ad is very different from somebody specifically searching for that term. The intent behind it is different. And, the sooner you move somebody to second purchase from first purchase actually massively increases the chance of those people becoming a lifetime shopper with you. So it's looking at, okay, what did the other people that took that journey, what did they look like, and looking at the places where you got that right. And it might be, what we've always run is a bit of sensible personalization and wisdom of the crowd, as in you look like these people. If we don't know enough about you, we might put you for now in a bucket with other people, but we would surface wildcards, so something else that might tempt somebody's interest as well. The great thing is when you're using an email or a website, there isn't just an option to put one thing in front of somebody. You can often put several in to test that with the database, but definitely base it on that person's engagement with you and where they originally found you from, because it tells you something about why they bought with you and what they saw as your USP, which could be different for everyone. Brian, Martin, do you have anything extra to add? If you just remind us of the question again, Alistair.
It was, what is the best way to personalize offers?
Okay.
I'll give you a great example, one that came in hot today, just in time for this webinar, right? So my purchase history, I love Nike, right? I only buy Jordans from them, Jordan sneakers. I buy Jordan 1s. That's my entire history. That's the only thing I've bought for 2 years, right? I got an email from them today that's very assumptive. It says, this is the title, new, our latest picks for you. We'll have a hunch you'll like these. I open this email, it's got a picture of a bunch of kids. I have no children. I then scroll through it and it's got sweatpants, followed by 7 different images of kids' clothing. Nike have just made me feel creepy. If they didn't do cool Jordan sneakers, I'd never go near them again. This is what personalization is. It's just logic, right? Sometimes, and I think that you could do all these fancy things, right? But the first thing you need to do is just a baseline that says, what do they buy from us? Who are they? Let's just give them more of that with a little bit of extra on either side, and that'll be enough, because making me feel like a creep is not a way that's going to engender loyalty to me. And I've never looked at kids' clothing on Nike, just to be clear. I'm not that guy.
Yeah, I totally agree with Martin. I think it's a matter of just making sure that your messaging is relevant, and people don't like their time being wasted. So actually, you just that unsubscribe button just gets pushed, and it gets pushed on the computer, but it also gets pushed in terms of your mind and where you're likely to go back. And that's a kind of key factor, and that's why you gotta have that trust within the communication that it is relevant, that I understand you, Brian. I know what you've come to me before for, and I think this is going to be relevant. But it just does need to hit that piece, and what they're acting on needs to be statistically significant, if you want to call it that, and managerially significant as well, for both customer and merchant.
Great, thank you very much. And any more questions, Alistair?
We have, yeah, there are a lot, but we probably just
we probably don't have time for them all.
One.
Yeah, maybe let's. Yeah.
So from Katie Archbold, this actually links to the title. Could you define best customer and define customer loyalty?
Okay.
Brian, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, with pleasure. So I think the best customer is your potential. It's nothing to do with how much they spend in your store. It's the potential that they have. So that's the key factor, is that they're a potential customer of mine. So if I'm selling petrol, I need you to have a car, not an electric one. But fundamentally, I need to know how much you're spending and how much I'm getting of that. And it's about understanding that person's potential. The other part of Katie's question, I think it was, Katie's question is around customer loyalty. I think it's about engagement. It's all about engagement. And let's come away from this kind of loyalty and stamps makes points and points makes prizes. It's about engagement. So they're my two answers to the question. Thanks for the question, Katie.
Great. Martin, anything to add?
I think the thing for me is your best customer is the one that thinks about you. When they have a need, when they've got something, that's it. It's not about how much money they've got to spend, because they might not have that much money. They might not be as mega keen on the industry that you represent. But when they do want to come to that industry and they have a need, they think of you. That's it. It's just about how you treat people, and that for me is relevance and its preferences, and it all comes back to context.
Thank you to everybody for joining us. If any of you are interested in continuing a conversation around how you can, be recognized as a great brand that is forefront of your customer's mind, you want to understand your customers better and how to drive hyper-targeted offers to win back customers, win new customers, or even prevent people from churning and lapsing, then please do get in touch with us, because we'd love to continue the conversation with you and help you get back some of that money that's being left on the table with your existing customer base. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, Alistair, for the questions. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.